Uh, Welcome everybody to the November 28th, 2023 Board of Health meeting, 7:01. And in accordance with the governor's order superseding certain provisions of the open meeting law, Mass General Law 30A, Section 20, related to the 2020 novel coronavirus outbreak emergency, the November 28th meeting of the Board of Health shall be physically closed to the public to avoid group congregation. Alternative public access to this meeting shall be utilizing the Zoom virtual meeting software, and that link is on the town's website. And this application will allow users to view the meeting and send a comment or questions to the chair via the chat function. Submitted text comments, questions may be read into the record at appropriate points in the meeting if they are in line with the town's public comment policy. The meeting will be recorded for future broadcast by Norfolk Community TV. Okay.
Thank you.
So we kick off the lack of public hearings.
Yeah, we will. We're missing one Board of Health member, Liz Gebhardt. She had let us know that she had a work conflict, so she's not attending tonight.
Okay. Next topic: appointments. Anything worth chatting about, or
no? Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Minutes are the next item. I have to admit, I read them once. I didn't see anything, but as I usually miss one or two things, I'm not sure. Liz always seems to pick up one or two minor things in them. And Christy, I don't know if you had any comments or if you read it for the meeting minutes.
I did read them. I didn't see anything. Nothing jumped out at me that was not correct. So.
So Betsy, this is the first time I think we've had when I've been chair that we've been missing a member who actually was at the meeting. And typically, if a member isn't in a meeting, they can't vote on the meeting minutes. And
Right.
if we could entertain just delaying it to the next meeting to just approve them, just so we can get the full board to vote on that. It's just, I don't know. I think it's a little bit of a courtesy as well as just some.
Yeah, that's no problem at all. That sounds fine.
Okay. Next item is the policy for potluck.
Yep. So John and I had taken a stab at drafting a policy for potluck meals, which you guys have sent. I know, Andy, you had commented. I had one error there, which was fixed. It's kind of a compilation of a few different towns. We had done some research, seeing what other towns had done. So, and that's the document that John and I came up with.
Okay. I think the policy is good, but I think, we're just looking at the potluck aspect of food. But I think the next policy that's going to have to come from this is actually the non-potluck functions, such as, if there's food being served at, whether it's a church, whether it's being catered in, whether they're using the kitchen, stuff like that. That's going to probably be a much heavier lift. And John, I hope you're shaking your head on that one. It's probably something we will need to look at sooner than later. And I just don't, I just don't know if we can cover all the potential scenarios with one or two documents. And that's the thing that's getting me worried, because it's going to take a lot of time for people. At the same time, someone's going to fall through the cracks, or a specific function is going to change a little bit, and then you have to do another policy, and this sort of becomes a never-ending ball of wax that keeps growing. And that's what I'm trying to hopefully we can avoid. So. I really have. I mean, I've read it through. I really have no comments on it. Christy, do you have any comments on the policy, or do you? You're on mute.
Sorry. I mean, I think it's worded a little bit. It's a little confusing to me. I read through it. In the third bullet point, no money be collected, but money be collected to support. Like, to me, that is a not very good sounding statement. To say it can't be collected and then follow it up with it can be collected. Maybe that just needs to be more specific about like you can't pay to attend, but you can donate. But however that's worded, I think to me doesn't make any sense. And then I think my one big concern with it is just this limiting it to one time, one location event, that it cannot be something that happens, whether it's monthly, whether it's, like I'm just looking back to, I can only speak to since I've been on the committee, and the community supper is sort of what kicked off all of these conversations. And now that would no longer qualify as a potluck event based on this policy. So they would have, they'd be coming back to more needs from the Board of Health. So I feel like it had been spoken about that we wanted to create this policy so that we didn't have a lot of people having to individually come and have to get approvals for certain activities. And in the end, this might create more people having to come to us to get specific approval for certain events that they're trying to host.
Christy, I think a little bit of background on the community supper is the fact that the option that was being pursued before is that the folks that are running it, you would get the necessary certifications to do that, and that would avoid this completely. And believe me, let's look at 6 meals a year to do a temporary permit for that function. If that's the best route that is chosen, the time to do that is probably 2 to 3 times as much as it would be to sit for the course to get the certification. So, that's kind of the way I'm looking at it, that there are simpler options to take care of. And then this whole thing would go away for the community supper if these people if they got the necessary certifications. That's the way I'm seeing it. And just to take just a quick sidestep, about a week and a half ago, I happened to be in a cafeteria, and the woman who runs the cafeteria was changing the signs for the safe serve and all that type of stuff. And I kind of looked at what she was doing. And so we chatted for a while. And believe me, what other towns are doing, not looking at potluck, is so much farther ahead. We as a town need to catch up on this stuff because we haven't been doing this for so long. So
that's like a qualified food establishment, I'm assuming. So they're requiring people to be Serve Safe certified. I would assume we're doing that in Norfolk as well for actual food establishment.
Yeah, it is. But the fact that this woman also, she lives in Holliston. She actually works with the athletic leagues in Holliston to set up the food concession stands as well. Slightly different, but again, what the steps are. And she said, yeah, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And I think once you can get everybody into this in the same frame of mind, it'll get a lot easier for everybody. But again, going back to the community supper, the fact that we were pushing for people to get the safe serve, the certified food managers, and all those necessary things in place, and this discussion wouldn't be happening if that had happened, if we didn't consider that a potluck organization or a function. And again, I look at a barbecue is not a potluck. That's the way I see it, because the food is being prepared on site, unless people are going to bring hamburgers and hot dogs, and then how do you heat them up? Well, I think we may have taken a little bit of a stumble trying to deal with that, and probably should have insisted that we probably should have these folks get the appropriate certifications, and we wouldn't be having this discussion. That's kind of the way I look at it. So.
Sure. I think my other question is just about the general public may not attend. I don't get so that it can't be like, it has to be a private invitation only type of event. Is that what that means?
You want me to speak to that?
Yes. Yeah, John, go ahead.
So, yeah, we're taking this because we couldn't get clear answers from the state. We're taking this wording from other towns that have this advisory in place. And so, a private event, so I think a traditional kind of potluck event might be like a cross-country team, end of the year, the families and the athletes and the coach get together and everybody brings a dish. I think that's a traditional potluck. I don't think that requires a permit. It doesn't require an inspection, and it's not necessarily open to the public, even though the family members and the student athletes are there. I think the same for a church congregation where it's just the congregation. But then when the church opens it up to all is welcome or a fair or something like that and advertises it, then it's no longer, at that point, it becomes a public event. And that's where a permit's required. And that's the reasoning for the wording in there, trying to just kind of clean that up. I think by, there's probably some edits to make here, but by deciding what the policy will be, it levels the playing field for everyone. The organizations know what's expected, and then what the town and the board wants to have done going forward.
Okay. Well, Christy, do you want to hold off approving this till Liz gets back? But at the same time, do you want to, I guess, write your concerns down, or John can talk separately about some clarification on some of the wording. When I saw to the example that you used about no money can exchange hands, my understanding is the annual potluck that we attend at our association up north, they basically will charge for the utensils and disposables to cover the cost, because people bring their dishes. So are you paying for food? No, you're not paying for food. You're paying for a hard good, or paper napkins and paper plates and utensils and stuff like that. And then it's a buck or two. It's really not a huge amount. But then again, does that make things more confusing? I don't know. I think the fact that this has been running annually for close to 45 years, it's a pretty well oiled machine on how it gets done. And there are still people that were there for the first one, so it's one of those things. But I think if it's separated, or if it's clarified saying that there, no money can be exchanged for food, would that satisfy, would that clarify or make it more confusing? So I think adding some words and some language in there to specify that you're not paying for food, but you could be paying for cost of the haul. I don't know. I'm throwing those out as an example, and then or utensils and paper plates and napkins, stuff like that. So I don't know if that's something that needs more clarification.
Yeah, I agree. I wish there was a better way to word that, and we can work on that. I think that's part from the general law. The organization can collect donations, but they can't charge you $10 for dinner, right, to come in. But they could have a suggested donation or something like that, a nominal amount to cover costs. I don't think there's any issue with that. But having just, we're having a potluck dinner, everyone is welcome, and it's $10 or $15 to attend. I think that's when we go beyond what's really intended for potluck. But we can work on finding a better way to phrase that.
Yeah, sorry, it just seems so confusing to me.
Yeah, for sure.
But I mean, I agree. Like, it could be like no fee may be charged, but donations are accepted to the organization. Something that gets that point across. But using the exact same verbiage, saying no and then yes, to me was really confusing.
Yep, for sure.
So I wouldn't be comfortable approving this as it is right now, I guess, Andy, to answer your question.
Yeah, no, it does need a little work. I mean, I had some thoughts as well, but the way it was, I think it's a start, and I think that's why we're having the top discussion now. So, but again, in having Liz chime in as well should hopefully get us along the way. So, John, Betts, I guess we have two areas we need to do some work on.
Sure.
I believe I can reply via email too, if that's more helpful. Betsy and John, I'm sorry that I didn't have time to after this got sent over.
Okay. I think that language was taken directly from the potluck advisory, if I remember right, but we can tweak it to however fits our needs.
I think the one thing that's going to really come into cause some problems for some people is the fact that it's identified as an annual event, or it's infrequent. It's not on a regular basis, and I know that's probably going to be a heavier lift to try and work through the language on some of that stuff too, because I think timing is critical. And John, correct me if I'm wrong, but with all the sports my daughter did during high school and the various functions that she attended where there was food, they seem to get around some of this. And these were in other towns; they weren't in Norfolk. They seem to get around the issues of food by a different person would organize it or a different group would organize it, but it's the same location, every quarter or at the end of one season to the next season. So I don't know if we're going to get into the weeds on that, anything like that, but that's something we may want to be aware of. That is that circumventing, or is that just kind of have to live with it? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think what kind of goes hand in hand with this potluck discussion is like private events as well. If it's a private event, I'll take an example completely outside of this, but somebody has a wedding, chooses to have a wedding in their backyard, right? That's a private event. It's only the family and their invited guests. Then the Board of Health doesn't need to be involved in that. So,
doesn't it depend on who's doing the food? I mean, I've worked a lot of backyard weddings in people's homes, and I've had to get permits depending on what town it's in.
It depends on what's going on, and if there's alcohol, I think they need alcohol permits separate from the Board of Health. And if you're paying a caterer to come and do it, then the caterer should have a permit where they're starting from. But if it kind of depends on what it is. I'm trying to find an example. And I think another example would be if you were to have a shower in a hall, right? If the hall's open to the public, they need a permit to operate. But if your family is just renting the space and bringing the food in for your invited guests, then that specific event is private. So, and I guess I'm trying to speak to Andy's analogy of the sports teams. I don't know if that's what's going on with those groups or not.
Yeah,
it's everything is not black and white, which is part of the issue. But
so, John, I guess the question then becomes: do we want to try and spell out every single possible scenario, or identify situations that could arise that may or may not need a permit? I know that usually with some sort of guidance document, you always sort of have a definition list of things. So I think that may be inevitable at some point. May not be necessary right now, but inevitable. Meaning, once this gets going, it may have to have a clarification document, which again, these are never ending issues. I understand that.
sure. Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of the intent for not for every situation, but for the multiple potluck events that are going on. That's the intent of at least our idea in offering up a policy document for that, because they are going on.
Okay.
But,
so, Betsy, if I could ask, if you could just send a reminder out to the board, just to provide some written comments back and clarification, sure. And whether we're looking at actual complete changes or complete comments that change the meaning of some areas or areas we need to add to. I don't know. I mean, I look at the other policies for other disciplines I work in, and they get really, really technical where they start identifying various regulations and stuff like that. And I don't know if we're there yet, or if we need to be there yet. So. Okay, so we'll hold off till Liz gets back for the next round of discussions.
Yep, good discussion.
Okay. Chris, you all set? Anything else you can? Okay.
Nope.
That's in my ink ran out. We have is Matt up next for the well regulations? Is that the next?
Matt is here. I believe. Yep, Matt's on.
There we go. I don't have anything new on the well regs. Holding pattern for right now. Andy, we'll have to get together at some point.
I know.
3 minute. It's been still busy with some perks and plans. The new development there, I still don't have any perk applications in. I know there was some chatter about some work going on, quite a bit of clearing and like that.
Is that Cranberry Meadows?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. I believe Rich and the Caitlin, the conservation agent, had gone out there to see what was going on. I don't believe there were any issues when they went out there, as far as I know, but I believe they're just doing some clearing and digging some exploratory holes. So that way, when they do submit the perk apps and we go out there, not wasting time. But I have nothing formal submitted yet.
Okay. Okay. So, okay. Yeah. Well, at some point when let's just say my life is going to get easier in a couple weeks because my wife is retiring from work. So I'll be so
Congratulations.
35 years at Children's.
Wow. That's going to be amazing.
Very long time. So Matt, once that happens, we can probably schedule an afternoon if you're available, and even if you're in Norfolk, we can talk and walk at the same time if necessary. So
absolutely sounds good.
So, Christy, just to give you some background on this whole thing, is the well regulations that Norfolk has for sampling private wells is from 1980. So there's things that you test for now that aren't even in the regulations anymore. So that we need to update that, plus newer chemicals. And I'm quite sure if you've watched TV or read stuff on the web, PFAS is the big concern. And when they first found PFAS, 10 years ago, they identified 6 different variants, and now they're up to 12,000, and they all have different things they do to people, and all they know is they do bioaccumulate in people, and they're just not a good thing. And getting those tested, it's pretty critical. There is technology that's available to remove it, but still, if you don't need to use it, it's expensive, so you might as well just get it tested and have a little bit of peace of mind. So that's kind of where we are. Matt and I.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, just like what percentage of homes in Norfolk with private wells are using that for like drinking water? Like I know we have a well, but it's only for outdoor water. Like what percentage are people using it for drinking water?
It's a good question.
I think it's a little less than 50% now.
There's 3,800 residential homes. Our neighborhood, pretty much everybody has or had a well. We do have town water, and people are given the option to connect to it on their own. But yeah, it's at one point I thought we were close to like 75%, and then with all the new development, that's gone down because of the requirement to hook town water.
Okay, so. Thanks. I was just curious to how many people were affected by the regulation.
To give you an idea, this summer I did test my well for everything except for PFAS, and it was $380 to do everything. Came back clean. The only thing that I had always been worried about was the nitrates, and the nitrates were just below 5, which last time I tested them 2 years ago they were 6. So obviously we've had a wet summer, so that may be part of the reason why. So, but the cost of PFAS for the laboratory I used, which was down in Bridgewater, it's called Analytical Balance. Their cost is between $900 and $1,200 to run a PFAS test, depending upon what you're running. So, potentially you're looking at an additional maximum, maybe $1,500–$1,600 for testing. So it's not cheap, but when you look at the cost of a house, it's a pretty small percentage. But then again, it's just one more thing you got to do.
So is that a test? Again, I'm sorry, I don't know. Is that a test that would be done when someone purchases or is in the process of selling the home? It's
Yeah,
another sort of test. Okay.
yeah,
We would require it for the sales.
part of the home inspection.
Yeah, same as like the Title V inspection for your septic. We require it
Yeah,
for the
know all
transfer.
about those.
Yep. We have a form, and if anything comes back high, I usually review all the test results, and then anything that's secondary contaminant level that comes back high, it can be signed off on. Usually just a notification. So
Okay. So Matt, if you want to send me an email what your times are when you're going to be in Norfolk between now and the end of the year, that would be great. I'll see what my schedule is like. I just have a lot of driving to do over the next 3 weeks, various places in New England. So it's going to be,
okay.
might be kind of tough unless, and then if there's snow on the ground, that'll be another story. So anyways.
Sounds good.
Again, Betsy helped me out. Buckley and Man and Southwood.
Yep.
Yeah, I've got nothing new on those. I noted that the master plan does reference both locations for a variety of reasons in terms of development, but that's something that Christy, if you haven't looked at the town's website, there's a questionnaire and feedback for that. So it's get as much if you have any input on that, by all means get it done. I did mine a week ago, so it was interesting to read this stuff. So, but, what's next? I think that's it.
I think it is. Of course, my cat's sitting on my agenda. So, next meeting we rescheduled our December to January 2nd.
Okay. Mr. Rosenthal, do you have a question, or are you just interested in listening in, or what's up?
Yeah, I didn't want to seem like a stalker here, but just as part of the public, I've lived in Norfolk for the last 2.5 years, but I've been a healthcare provider for over 30, and just wanted to see what goes on at the Board of Health, and if it's something I might be able to help out with at some point.
Okay. Okay. Well, just so you know, both Matt and John are, I'm not going to say they're completely new, but they're relatively new because we as a town have more time, more of their time now because of a grant that we got a couple years ago. So that's been a big change in the discussion that we had earlier about the food preparation potluck. Those regulations have been in place since the late 90s, and with John coming in, and he's realizing that these things need to be either monitored or checked or licensed or approved, or they need to follow what's in on what the regulations are. So that's kind of what that discussion was. It might be, if you were a little bit lost on that, that's fine. We can talk about it more.
Yeah, that's fine. I actually saw the last month's meeting on YouTube recorded.
Okay. Well, just so you know, Matt does all the septic system designs, reviews, all that. We see occasionally a septic system design when there's a variance being requested, and that's the limit of the board's involvement with that stuff now, because we don't need to, we don't need to see that. And John gives us the occasional update on his inspections, and then Betsy, I'm spacing out on the gentleman who's now doing the tobacco control stuff.
Pari is his first name.
Pari, yeah. I wanted to say Parnell, but I knew that wasn't it. So sorry.
Yep, and then we actually our public health nurses, Lauren and Janine, also through the Public Health Excellence Grant, they're actually were Rentham's public health nurses, and they actually cover Norfolk as well.
Okay. Well, we can have a record meeting here, 30 minutes. or less.
I have a question, Andy. I know you had mentioned at the last meeting you were going to speak potentially at the
I'm
town
sorry. Yes, I
meeting.
did.
Did
I
you
did.
do that? Did any questions come up from anyone?
No,
Sorry, I was on vacation.
No, when you give an update at town meeting, you're not allowed to do questions, just because a couple of years ago someone got up and raised a question. It sort of became an argument back and forth. So I think they've stopped questions. Yes, I did. I explained that the Board of Health is sort of going through these iterations, and we are a little bit in flux of trying to get the policy in place, as well as trying to understand the actual events that go on and seeing where they fall into the regulations. The few people, there weren't a lot of people. I want to say maybe 110 or so. Not a lot of blank faces, but a lot of people a few people were nodding, understanding what was going on. But yeah, it just was more of a heads up more than anything else. I mean, it didn't necessarily call out any past work or anything else like that. Just one of those things where it's like, we're trying to get this taken care of, because food kind of is important for everybody. So, but yes, so I did. So sorry about that. Thank you for bringing that up. I forgot about it. I kept it under 2 minutes, so Jay Tower was happy. So. Okay. Well, do we have a motion to adjourn for the evening?
Sure, I'll put forth a motion to adjourn the meeting.
And I'll second it. So Andy Bakanowski, aye.
Christy Burns, aye.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Have a good night.